Hi guys, I'm Rachel, one of the nurses here at Millennium. I'm just chatting to you today about Rabbit Awareness Week. I'm Rachel, I've been here for just coming up 2 years. I qualified in July 2023 and I'm a fond lover of all the small things furry. So I've got 2 bunnies at home and I've got 3 guinea pigs. My bunnies are chocolate mini lops and they're 7 years old and they're called Albert and Teddy. So we're just going to run through a few questions with you guys today that people have asked just to give you some information this week.
What is the best type of housing for my rabbit?
So, depending on the bunny, some bunnies prefer indoors, some bunnies prefer outdoors, but the biggest thing to concentrate on is space. I think they need a lot more space than people realise. They need space in their house so that they can stand up on their back legs and hop around, get moving. The bigger the space, the better. So a lot of people convert sheds into rabbit sheds, and just have to be aware that in the colder months and the hot months that they get a bit cold and they're not as insulated. But there's a lot of information on the Rabbit Welfare Association Fund websites about the minimum requirements for rabbits, because people do underestimate how much space that they need.
What kind of bedding should I use?
So there's lots of different beddings out there that you can use. There's different beddings like hemp beddings or fine dust extracted wood shavings that it just needs to be absorbent and easily cleanable. You can use straw, but people do say that because rabbits eat straw and it actually has no nutritional value, to use hay instead. Just because if they are going to eat it, they might as well be eating the hay rather than the straw. So I use hay and I pack it quite thick so that when they jump around they land in on a nice soft padded area, because older bunnies especially will get arthritis, so it's just important that their areas are nice and padded.
What should I feed my rabbit every day?
So your bunny's diet needs to be made up of mostly hay and grass, roughly 80 to 90% hay and grass. A good quality hay like Burgess or farmer's hay that you can get is often cheaper, but it does come sometimes with a few mites, so you might need to keep an eye on that. Pellets roughly only make up 5% of their daily requirement. You should avoid the muesli type foods because they will choose what they like out of it, so they do selective feeding, so they'll choose the sweet bits, and it's really not a balanced diet. Whereas these kind of pellets, they're all the same shape, they're all formulated the same, so they've got a complete diet in them. In terms of vegetables, you just have to be careful with things that are really high in calcium, like kale, and a lot of the herbs apart from mint are quite high in calcium, because they can get bladder stones or sludge and things like that, so you just have to be careful with that. Introducing things slowly. I find that when my boys have a lot of lettuce, they do get diarrhea, so just anything that you give that they've not had before, just introduce it slowly. And if you are changing their food, you need to do that gradually as well. Most of the formulated food like Burgess and Science Selective will have a feeding guide on the back, but it's not really something that you should be filling up constantly. It should be just a set amount. A lot of them are like an egg cup full, 40 grams per bunny a day, and just letting them have that as a treat and then encouraging them to have the hay and the grass.
What kind of enrichment do rabbits need?
So they always say that enrichment isn't a privilege, it's something that they should have all the time. So whether that's like a kitchen roll tube stuffed with hay and some treats, little balls of hay that you can get from pet shops and you can stuff them full of little treats and more hay as well. Allowing them to have different levels to jump up and down on, tunnels, they like exploring, they like chewing things. Mine like trying to eat my apple tree, which is really not helpful, but they will try and chew anything they can get. They like to dig, so just providing them with spaces and toys that they can play with keeps them occupied.
How often should I vaccinate my rabbit?
So rabbits have, there's a few vaccines. So the main one that we do is for RHD, so rabbit hemorrhagic disease, and myxomatosis, both of which can be fatal. So we do that every 12 months. And there is a new vaccine out called the Urvac vaccine. It's for a new strain of the rabbit hemorrhagic disease, and you can have that any time of the year, but it just needs to be at least 2 weeks apart from their original vaccine, so the RHD and the myxomatosis one. But we would definitely recommend getting that done because there is a lot going around at the moment, can be carried by birds and wild animals and things like that. So if you have a lot of traffic in your garden, it's definitely worth thinking about. And we also are encouraging owners to get their rabbits vaccinated if they are bringing them in for neutering, because they're going to be in a clinical space where there's been other bunnies, so it's really important that they're protected against those diseases. And getting your bunny's vaccine done every year could coincide with getting a health check, so they should have a health check at least once a year just to see how everything's going, and we'll be making a video on what we look for in a bunny health check, just so you guys are aware.
Why is neutering my rabbit important?
So there's a few reasons why neutering is encouraged. So if you have two of the same sex, so two boys or two females, neutering will calm down a lot of their hormones and prevent fighting. So I got my two boys neutered as soon as I could, because they were starting to hump each other, and they were spraying urine a lot. So if you have indoor bunnies and they're spraying urine, it could be hormonal. So getting them neutered will not completely eliminate it, but should help reduce it. As well, preventing things like our cats and dogs get pyometras, and rabbits can also get a pyometra too, so getting female spayed will prevent these kind of diseases, and just good. It's just good for their general condition, for them to be neutered at a fairly young age. It's also important for them to be sexed correctly, so even if you get a bunny from a pet shop, it might just be a good idea to bring it in so we can sex it and avoid babies from occurring, because that is one of the biggest reasons for neutering as well.
Can my rabbit live outside all year?
So the answer is yes, your rabbit can live outside all year. Just need to make sure that their houses are insulated, protected from the elements and predators all year round, and the extreme heat or cold that you're providing extra things like in the hot frozen water bottles, cool pads, things like that, and then in the winter like heat pads and things, and extra hay to keep them warm. But they can certainly live outside all year round, and it's good for them to be out foraging in the changes in seasons.
My rabbit gets stressed coming to the vet. How can I reduce this?
So there's a few ways that we can do this. Rabbits are prey animals, so they are going to be stressed regardless. But there's things that we can do to reduce the stress. So putting them in a carrier that they've had time to get used to, so before their trip to the vet you can have them running around in the garden or in the house and have the carrier in there and introduce it slowly so it's not an unfamiliar place to be. You can put familiar bedding in there. I would always keep the carrier on the floor, even when you bring them into the vets. If it's safe to do so, pop them on the floor, because rabbits don't naturally like being at height. So yeah, bringing a friend with them, so if they're a bonded pair or you've got 3 of them, it's probably wise to bring them all in, just because the stress from separating them will be bigger than the stress of them both coming in, if you see what I mean. And you can cover their carrier with a towel or a blanket, providing it's not too hot, just to avoid extra visible stimulation that might stress them.
How can I care for my older rabbit?
So there's a few things that you can do to care for your older bunny. Bunnies do age a little bit differently to cats and dogs, just because bunnies in the wild don't normally survive past 1 or 2 years of age, so anything older than that we do consider old. So you can have extra padded bedding, like I said earlier, for them jumping up and down off height, so that there's more padding to absorb the shock when they land. They're more prone to arthritis. Keeping them a good weight as well is really important, so that they've not got that extra weight on their joints, but making sure that they're not underweight, so they've got some padding if they do get poorly, as well as brushing them daily or regularly if they need it, because they're not going to be able to get round to further areas like their bottom, checking their bottom regularly, and just making sure that they are in good health and they're coming to the vets often for checks, because they're going to be more prone to some issues.
How can I encourage my rabbit to keep moving?
So it's really important to keep bunnies moving, especially in the colder months, because if they sit for long periods of time, they might get a little bit stiff and they might not want to eat. So it's really important just to keep them moving. Even in the summer as well, if you've got an older bunny, and you can do this by providing safe places for them to play, spending time out there with them, playing with them gently, providing toys and tunnels for them to run through. Sometimes my boys don't really notice that their door is open for them to go outside, so I will just put them out there, and then they tend to realise, oh, we can go outside now. So they might just need a bit of encouragement and a bit of pushing along, but it's really important to keep them moving.
How do I know if my rabbit is unwell?
So there's a few things that you can look for. Some of them might be gradual and some of them might be immediate, but we always say if your bunny ever stops eating, that is an emergency and you do need to come in and see us. But things that you can look for are weepy eyes, so they might have a blocked tear duct, or if they have weepy eyes, that could be an indicator of dental disease. Same as having a dribbly chin, that could indicate dental disease as well, and that's the same for guinea pigs. Just keeping an eye on them if they're not moving much, if they're quite lethargic, if they don't seem to be getting comfortable, so they're laying out on their tummy but they look a little bit like they're shifting their weight, that could be a sign that they've got a bit of bloat or a bit of upset tummy, or something's going on in there that they're a bit uncomfortable, and just reluctance to engage, and obviously most importantly that they've stopped eating as well. And if you notice that your bunny's poos have changed, or their wee's a different colour, like it's got blood in it, or they have stopped pooing completely, that would be another reason to make a visit to us.
Is it important to groom my rabbit regularly?
Yes, especially in the summer months when there's flies about. We do see a few fly strike cases which are really critical. So if you do notice any maggots or lots of flies near the area, you need to be checking your bunny's bums daily at least, or if not twice a day, making sure their toilets and their bedding areas fresh and clean, just to prevent flies from accumulating. And also older bunnies, like I said earlier, overweight bunnies, they're not going to be able to reach their bottoms to groom or anything like that, so just need to give them a brush, make sure no mats occur. Longer haired bunnies especially will need a little bit of assistance grooming, just because the way that their fur grows, especially the lion heads, just to make sure there's no mats that's pulling on their skin. So for the rest of July, we're going to be running our free nurse health checks for bunnies, so they can come in, have a quick health check with the nurses and a claw clip if they need. We're also giving out these rabbit packs just with some information in and some free food samples, but it's just a good chance for them to be checked over. It's good to get them in so they can get used to coming to the vets, albeit they might still be stressed, but it's good to get them used to it. So thank you for listening. I'm Rachel, one of the exotic nurses here, so yeah, thanks for listening.